Well, my name is Mark Scott. I'm the management lead for babies, children, young people and personalised care at North East London CCG. So I'd like to start off my talk with actually asking everyone here and everyone at home or at work, wherever you are, to delve back into your past and really to think about a time when you were doing something really, really difficult and really challenging, where you all felt really, really supported. And as a result of these conditions, you were able to give the best possible version of yourself. So you're in peak performance. It could have been at school, work, or in sport. And if you've ever felt this, I'd like to hold this memory for the next few minutes. Now, I worked with a leadership coach a few years ago, probably about 5 or 10 years ago, who spent most of his career, 30, 40 years, trying to introduce inclusive leadership across the NHS. And he was a really experienced and well-connected leader. And eventually he developed this model, this leadership system based upon the principles of inclusive leadership, which he was convinced that would drive out fear and support the principles of trauma-informed care. Unfortunately, he retired before he really got to implement it in full. So for me, it really is unfinished business. How can you really make such a system work? Now, outside of my work in the NHS, I've been getting into sports coaching. So I've spent the last few years, 3 or 4 years, doing kids rugby coaching. I've also got interested in sports leadership. And I read a book, it's an autobiography by one of the leading American football coaches. His name's Pete Carroll. And I just couldn't believe it. His leadership system and philosophy was exactly the same as my previous coach in the NHS. And actually, he'd become one of the most successful coaches ever in the NFL. And I just couldn't believe it. I then realized that actually some of the most successful sports coaches in basketball and football had the same leadership philosophy based upon relationships, inclusion, and trust. Coach Wooden in American basketball, the most successful coach ever, and actually Gareth Southgate in England with the England football coach. And actually this type of leadership, if people want to know more about it, has been celebrated by the TV program Ted Lasso on Apple TV about an American coach in an English Premier League football club. Now, following my coaching in the NHS, following learning about this, I've started using these leadership approaches in my work. I've actually started small steps with the under-9 rugby team I've coached for the last 3 years, but I've also been doing it in my work. And I've got 3 take-home lessons I think can help inform trauma-informed care I'd like to share with you. The first one is to replicate success and forget failure. Now, I'm not sure if anyone here has tried to train a dog. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time the last couple of years, got a lockdown puppy trying to train a dog. And I've actually had real troubles with trying to train a dog. Right, I had real troubles with going to the toilet in the house. Now, I just used to tell it off. I used to have a real go at the dog for being so stupid for going to the toilet in my house. And do you know what that did? It traumatized the dog, right? It made it do it more. Yeah. So I had to get a dog trainer in to tell me to sort it out. And the solution, never tell off a dog. It traumatizes it. Get it to do the right thing, and then you reward it. You give it a treat. And the same works. All this coach, all the work I did with my NHS leadership coach and one of these great sports coaches has this same principle to get great teams. You build confidence through replicating success. You don't blame and traumatize. And then what happens if you do make a mistake? So you give away a try, you give away a goal in the last minute of the match. And this is taken directly from Ted Lasso. And it's another animal metaphor. Be a goldfish. They're the happiest animal in the world. They've got a 10-second memory. So forget your mistakes, save your energy for replicating success. That's lesson 1. Lesson 2 is about competition. So get people to compete with themselves, not at the expense of others. It's quite a short example, no animals involved. So work and life is competitive, yeah. And often we think about competition as beating our opponents, yeah. We do well at the expense of others. But these great sports teams, these great leaders, and the leadership philosophy from my old coach actually said competition is about striving to reach your own potential. Yeah, it's inward looking, and your opponents, they're other people, are there to help bring the best out of you. They're there to help. And my final point, my final take-home lesson, it really comes down to that memory I hope lots of you are holding about when you were supported to give the best possible version of yourself. Now, I know for me, I know the leaders, and it's often been teachers, it's often been coaches, and it hasn't been that many. Those who've done it for me, there's one thing they had in common, and it was that they offered maximum support whilst helping me do really challenging things. And they genuinely believed they weren't just there to deliver a service, they were here to develop people to be at their best. Now, my experience has shown me that it is possible to drive out fear and build confidence in our work. But it does need this different type of leadership.